currently Earth. On September 16th in the year 1620, the Mayflower sails from Plymouth, England, bound for the Americas with 102 passengers. The ship was headed for Virginia, where the colonists, half religious dissenters and half entrepreneurs, had been authorized to settle by the British Crown. However, stormy weather and navigational errors forced the Mayflower off course, and on November 21st, the Pilgrims reached Massachusetts, where they founded the first permanent European settlement in New England in late December. "35 of the Pilgrims were members of the Radical English Separatist Church, who traveled to America to escape the jurisdiction of the Church of England, which they found corrupt. 10 years earlier, English persecution had led a group of separatists to flee to Holland in search of religious freedom. However, many were dissatisfied with economic opportunities in the Netherlands, and under the direction of William Bradford, they decided to immigrate to Virginia, where an English colony had been founded at Jamestown in 1607. The Separatists won financial backing from a group of investors called the London Adventurers, who were promised a sizable share of the colony's profits. 36 church members made their way back to England, where they were joined by about 70 entrepreneurs, enlisted by the London Stock Company to ensure the success of the enterprise. In August of 1620, the Mayflower left Southampton with a smaller vessel, the Speedwell, but the latter proved unseaworthy and twice was forced to return to port. On September 16th, the Mayflower left for America alone from Plymouth. In a difficult Atlantic crossing, the 90-foot Mayflower encountered rough seas and storms and was blown more than 500 miles off course. Along the way, the settlers formulated and signed the Mayflower Compact, an agreement that bound the signatures into a civil body politic. Because it was established constitutional law and the rule of the majority, the compact is regarded as an important precursor to American democracy. After a 66-day voyage, the ship landed on November 21st on the tip of Cape Cod at what is now Provincetown, Massachusetts. After coming to anchor in Provincetown Harbor, a party of armed men under the command of Captain Miles Standish was sent out to explore the area and find a location suitable for settlement. While they were gone, Susanna White gave birth to a son, Peregrine, aboard the Mayflower. He was the first English child born in New England. In mid-December, the explorers went ashore at a location across Cape Cod Bay, where they found cleared fields and plentiful running water and named this site Plymouth. The expedition returned to Provincetown, and on December 21st, the Mayflower came to anchor in Plymouth Harbor. Just after Christmas, the Pilgrims began to work on dwellings that would shelter them through their difficult first winter in America. In the first year of settlement, half the colonists continued their eternity due to bouts with disease. In 1621, the health and economic condition of the colonists improved. In that autumn, Governor William Bradford invited neighboring Indians to Plymouth to celebrate the bounty of that year's harvest season. Plymouth soon secured treaties with most local Indian tribes, and the economy steadily grew, and more colonists were attracted to the settlement. By the mid-1640s, Plymouth's population numbered 3,000 people, but by then, the settlement had been overshadowed by the larger Massachusetts Bay Colony to the north, settled by the Puritans in 1629. The term Pilgrim was not used to describe the Plymouth colonists until the early 19th century and was derived from a manuscript in which Governor Bradford spoke of the saints who left Holland as pilgrims. The orator Daniel Webster spoke of Pilgrim Fathers at a bicentennial celebration of Plymouth's founding in 1820, and thereafter the term entered common usage. On September 16th in 1893, the largest land run in history begins with more than 100,000 people pouring into the Cherokee Strip of Oklahoma to claim valuable land that had once belonged to Native Americans. With a single shot from a pistol, the mad dash began, and land-hungry pioneers on horseback and in carriages raced forward to stake their claims to the best acres. Ironically, not many years before, that same land had been once considered worthless desert. Early explorers of Oklahoma believed that the territory was too arid and treeless for white settlement, but several suggested it might be the perfect place to resettle Native Americans whose rich and fertile lands in the southeast were increasingly coveted by newer Americans. The U.S. government later took this advice and began removing eastern tribes like the Cherokee and Choctaw to Oklahoma Territory in 1817. No more eager than the whites to leave their green and well-watered lands for the arid plains, some Native Americans resisted and had to be removed by force. Most tragically, the 4,000 Cherokee who continued their eternity during the brutal overland march known appropriately as the Trail of Tears. By 1885, a diverse mixture of Native American tribes had been pushed onto reservations in eastern Oklahoma and promised that the land would be theirs, quote, as long as the grass grows and the water runs, unquote. Yet even this seemingly marginal land did not long escape the attention of land-hungry Americans. By the late 19th century, farmers had developed new methods that suddenly made the formerly reviled plains hugely valuable. Pressure steadily increased to open the native lands to settlement, and in 1889, our nation's 23rd president, Benjamin Harrison, succumbed and threw open large areas of unoccupied Native American lands to white settlement. The giant Cherokee Strip Rush was only the largest of a series of massive land runs that began in the 1890s, with thousands of immigrants stampeding into Oklahoma Territory and establishing towns like Norman and Oklahoma City almost overnight. It was on September 16th in 1908 that the Buick Motor Company head, William Crapo Durant, spends $2,000 to incorporate General Motors in New Jersey. Durant, a high school dropout, made his fortune building horse-drawn carriages, and in fact, he hated cars. He thought they were noisy, smelly, and dangerous. Nevertheless, the giant company he built would dominate the American auto industry for decades. In the first years of the 20th century, however, that industry was a mess. There were about 45 different car companies in the U.S., most of which sold only a handful of cars each year, and many of which had an unpleasant tendency to take customers' down payments and then go out of business before delivering a completed automobile. Industrialist Benjamin Briscoe called this way of doing business manufacturing gambling, and he proposed a better idea.
Tell me.
To build consumer confidence and drive the weakest car companies out of business, he wanted to consolidate the largest and most reliable manufacturers, Ford, REO, and his own Maxwell Briscoe and Durant's Buick, into one big company. This idea appealed to Durant, though not to Henry Ford or REO's Ransom E. Olds, who had made his millions in the carriage business just that way. Instead of selling one kind of vehicle to one kind of customer, Durant's company had sold carriages and carts of all kinds, from the utilitarian to the luxurious. But Briscoe wanted to merge all the companies completely into one, while Durant wanted to build a holding company that would leave its individual parts more or less alone. Durant is for states' rights, Briscoe said. I am for a union. Durant got his way, and the new GM was the opposite of Ford. Instead of just making one car like the Model T, it produced a wide variety of cars for a wide variety of buyers. In its first 2 years, GM cobbled together 30 companies, including 11 automakers like Oldsmobile, Cadillac, and Oakland, which later became Pontiac. He also acquired some supplier firms and even an electric company. Buying all these companies was too expensive for the fledgling GM, and in 1911, the corporation board forced the spendthrift Durant to quit. He started a new car company with the Chevrolet brothers and was able to buy enough GM stock to regain control of the corporation in 1916. But his profligate ways got the better of him, and he was forced out again in 1920. During the Depression, Durant went bankrupt, and he spent his last years managing a bowling alley in Flint, Michigan. All historic information divulged and documented on this audio file can be verified on History.com.